Hello and welcome to my channel where I talk about personal finance and travel. And today I'd like to talk about the second stimulus check that Americans could be receiving. I'll talk about if it's needed, I'll give an overview of what it could look like, and I'll talk about how recent protests have affected the chances of a second stimulus. So let's begin with whether or not it's needed. Just this week, it appears that unemployment has peaked in America, leading one White House senior economic advisor to say that this has taken the wind out of the sails of a Phase 4 stimulus bill, which would include a second round of stimulus checks for Americans. This is counteracted, however, by testimony given by Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell that gave a dire economic outlook in his recent Senate testimony, saying that he planned to keep interest rates at near zero for the foreseeable future, and really painting a picture of a lot of economic hurt still ahead of us. This is seen in the downturns that we saw this week in the stock market, which also reminds us that there is still a lot of uncertainty in the economic markets and that it's too soon to believe that we've turned a corner. Furthermore, even though it seems to have peaked on new cases of unemployment is still at a historic high point, and certainly it was unexpected for new unemployment filings to keep going up and up indefinitely. There had to be a ceiling, and it seems like we've maybe reached that, but that doesn't necessarily lessen the impact of the massive amount of unemployment that's currently rippling around the economy. Finally, we've seen a resurgence in a second wave of pandemic cases around the country, with 20 states reporting a huge increase in new cases, meaning that we could see another economic dip on the tail of all these new COVID-19 cases. This leads us to an overview of what the next stimulus could look like. There are essentially three players in this game. First, House Democrats, second, Senate Republicans, and third, the White House. So let's look at each one of them in turn. By far the most fleshed out position among these is the House Democrats, who have already passed the HEROES Act, which does include a second stimulus for all Americans whose adjusted gross income is less than $75,000 in their 2018 or 2019 tax filings. It also offers $1,200 to each dependent, unlike the previous $500 offered in the first round of stimulus. However, it does retain the cap of $6,000 per household. Additionally, the second round of stimulus under the HEROES Act would provide for people without Social Security numbers to be able to apply for it, and would extend the $600 additional unemployment payments through the end of the year. This whole package would come in at around $3 trillion, unlike the CARES Act, which included the first round of stimulus payments, which was only $2 trillion. The Senate Republicans have said, first, that they don't want to spend more than $1 trillion, putting some of these proposals undoubtedly at risk, and second, that they want this to be the last round of stimulus. So don't expect any YouTube videos talking about third round of stimulus checks. However, given that their position is $1 trillion and the House Democrats' position is $3 trillion, it's not unreasonable to believe that the final bill will end up around the $2 trillion of the original CARES Act. A lot of people believe that the $1 trillion number is a negotiating position for the Senate Republicans to get some concessions from House Democrats on things like liability caps for the restaurants, entertainment industry, and healthcare, so that if you go to Las Vegas casino and end up getting sick, this could cap your ability to sue the casino. This is one of the major proposals that House Republicans would like to see. Finally, we go to the White House, where President Trump, in a Rose Garden address, has publicly said that he wants to see a second round of stimulus and is planning on working on another stimulus bill. He would like to see it include payroll tax reductions, as well as potentially a tax credit for Americans who travel domestically. He would also like to see unemployment benefits cut to $300 or $250 a week instead of the current $600 to encourage more Americans to get back to work. It's expected that the White House will begin working on their own stimulus proposal this week and through July. This means that with White House support and House Democrat support, there should be a significant amount of pressure on Senate Republicans to come along, and I would say that it is highly likely that we will see a second stimulus check come out of the final Phase 4 stimulus bill. The big question mark is, how will recent protests affect this action? Well, first, it's going to take legislative focus away from the economy and place it onto criminal justice. So I wouldn't expect to see any action on a Phase 4 stimulus bill until August. Finally, there is some risk that it could take political pressure off the Trump administration for a Phase 4 stimulus bill. The thinking is that the reason why the Trump administration has been so strongly pushing for direct payments to Americans is because his sagging poll numbers due to a declining economy. If attention is pulled off of the economy by protests, Trump could see his poll numbers begin to rise again, as protests and crime and injustice issues are generally seen to favor Republicans, whereas a sinking economy is always going to be detrimental to the incumbent party. So if focus is pulled away from the economy and onto crime and justice issues, Trump could escape without having to make massive changes to his economic policy, and this would be a boon to him because it would not anger the fiscal hawks in his party, who are upset to see all of the spending that's already happened in the stimulus on COVID-19. However, historically, no issue has been able to override an economy, and the size of the recession that we are looking at and the effects of the economy that we've already seen with mass unemployment at a historic level is so large that it's hard to imagine that anything will be able to pull Americans' attention away from this. And even if it does, it's hard to imagine, given the lag time between passing the legislation and actually getting checks out, that the Trump administration would take any risk in not pushing for a stimulus.